Encountering the Dogman while legend tripping. Dear Scary Stories NYC. This is a story of how I went out legend tripping with my cousins in Michigan, looking to see a ghost or maybe ghost lights, but we ended up seeing a Dogman instead. By the way, this is a scary story with a slow build, but if you want to jump straight to the part with the Dogman in it, jump to that time on the screen in the corner. This all happened a couple winters ago. I was out staying in Michigan with my uncle and his family on Christmas break in my senior year in college, and hanging out with my two cousins, who we can call Trevor and Nigel, just because I know they would seriously dislike being called Trevor and Nigel. We kid each other a lot, as you can tell. I have no brothers, and those two are the closest thing I've got to them. So one night I asked if there were any good ghost lights or haunted roads or anything like that we could go legend tripping to in the area. My uncle suggested we check out Crybaby Bridge, so we Googled it, and it turns out there are more than one of them. In fact, there seem to be 10 or more Crybaby Bridges across the United States, and we found 2 in Michigan alone. One was closer to us, and the other further away, obviously. Interestingly, both are located just under the Great Lakes, which are bodies of water that many strange things have been reported in and nearby. I suggested we go to the closer one first, and if nothing happened, we could take the 2-hour drive out to the further away one. None of us had to get up early the next day, and we were all hyper from having just watched a scary movie. So we decided to make it an all-night adventure. We grabbed some snacks and beverages and piled in the car, with my uncle driving, since it was already getting kinda late. We reached the bridge on Morrow Road right around midnight, the witching hour. The place is spooky as all get out in the middle of the night in the winter, and I was already excited. I really expected something to happen. I think we all did. Now, the legend behind this particular Crybaby Bridge is that a woman back in the 1800s discovered her baby boy was missing. She went out into the cold, snowy night searching for her son, but never found him, and she froze to death. According to the story, if you go to the Crybaby Bridge and honk your horn 3 times, you will hear the baby crying, or else you will encounter the ghost of the woman who will demand that you tell her where her baby is. In some versions, she's supposed to chase you down the road or attack your car. There are variations upon variations. In some versions, the baby was taken from the house and both he and his mother were done away with. In other versions, they drowned in the icy water under the bridge. I found this the creepiest of the Crybaby Bridge stories, and was excited that we'd be going there first. I had a feeling we'd be so scared after visiting that location that we'd forget about the second Crybaby Bridge, which, as I said, was another 2 hours of driving past the first one. But just in case, I studied up on that second one as well. That one is located in Morrow, Michigan on Wilder Road. I'll give you the deets when we get to that part of the story. So we got to Morrow Road around midnight, and it took a bit of driving before we found the bridge in question. At least I think it was supposed to be the bridge. None of us were sure. I think they redid the area fairly recently before we went there, as things looked a lot different than they had on Google Maps. At any rate, we parked the car and got out, but left the motor running. None of us walked away very far from the car, and in fact I had my hand on the door handle in case I needed to get back inside in a rush. We challenged each other to beep the horn, but it turns out we had all gotten ourselves pretty frightened. Or I guess I should say pre-frightened, and finally it was up to my uncle to beep the horn for us. If someone angry comes running up, he warned us, it'll more than likely be a neighbor trying to sleep than any ghost. To him this was all funny, but I shushed him, wanting to listen closely to hear if there were any baby crying sounds, or sounds of the mother. We kept our eyes peeled, and looked all around, shining our flashlights in every direction, looking for anything out of the ordinary. Trevor suddenly got in the car fast, slamming the door behind him hard. This almost gave me and Nigel a heart attack, and we dove inside the car too, wanting to know what Trevor had seen or heard. He told us he hadn't seen or heard anything. We asked him why he jumped in the car like that then, and he said he just counted to 100, and since nothing happened, he got back inside the car. His father / my uncle started kidding him and we joined in, but he insisted he wasn't scared. It was just that he was ready to go on to the next Crybaby Bridge. I asked him that we please sit and listen for another couple minutes before moving on, and so we did. I wanted to videotape the area with my phone, but I ran out of space in only a minute. After 2 minutes, my uncle asked if we were ready to head home and turn in. I said no very emphatically. We hadn't had any luck on Morrow Road, but we still hadn't tried Wilder Road. My cousins chimed in, agreeing with me, so my uncle rolled his eyes and put the car in drive. My cousins started filming with their phones as we headed to the second location, both running out of space or battery power before we were halfway there. The GPS in the car started giving us incorrect directions, and this frustrated my uncle, who had us all checking for a better path on our phones. We were taken far out of the scary mood we had started in, and I was beginning to wonder if we had made the wrong decision, deciding to continue the trip. Maybe we should have gone home and fallen asleep to a monster movie or something else instead. I decided we should tell scary stories to try to get back in the mood, but nobody was really into it. When we finally saw the bridge on Wilder Road come into the headlights, I think I was the only one still in the mood. This Crybaby Bridge is in Morrow on Wilder Road, as I mentioned earlier. The story behind it is set in more recent times and involves a mother driving home with her son in the passenger seat. Suddenly, upon reaching the bridge, her engine mysteriously stalled. She got out of the car to see if she could figure out what was wrong with the engine, but found nothing out of order. When she returned to the car, however, her son was now completely gone. The woman went searching for her son, but never found him, freezing to death in the cold night instead. Some people say they can still hear the baby crying, and others say they can see the woman still searching for her boy. Others claim that their car stalls out when they're on the bridge, which probably to me might be the most frightening possibility. So this bridge, out in the middle of nowhere, is alleged to not only be haunted, but deadly. I tell you, that bridge looked ultra creepy in the dark, and I felt a major chill run through me. Rather than putting the car into park like last time, my uncle watched as the car ground to a halt by itself. The engine turned off with a sound like someone choking as they were drowning. We all piled out of the car. My uncle pulled up the hood and began checking out the engine. My cousins and I walked onto the bridge, which is a clunky old thing. I looked over the edge of the bridge, and I saw the water rushing past underneath. It instantly made me feel dizzy, and I had to pull back from the edge. It wasn't like I was afraid someone would push me over or anything paranoid like that, but it felt like I was going to fall forward out of my own control. I brushed it off as me just being tired, and I made a mental note not to get that close to the edge anymore. I told the others that if there was any truth to the story, then probably both the baby and the mother had been washed away by the water. It was going so fast that if one of us fell in, it would have taken any of us away with it before we could do very much to save ourselves. My uncle slammed the hood down and my knees almost buckled from the loud noise. We all laughed in relief that it was just him and not the bridge collapsing or a ghost coming after us or whatever. Trevor gasped and we all jumped. "What is it?" I wanted to know. He remained silent for a second, then said, "It was nothing." When we asked him to explain this nothing, he said he thought he'd seen a ghost light off in the distance. Then he realized it was just an airplane flying by very far away. My uncle called out to warn us that he was going to try the car engine. He said he didn't want any of us wetting ourselves from the shock of the noise, and we all laughed. The car started up on the first try, and we all let out a little cheer. We may not have gotten to get scared by anything, but our good mood had returned at least. But it was not to last long, as fate had other plans. When I was about 15 feet away from the car, the engine failed again, and the car lights all went out. This completely blinded me, and I would imagine the same thing happened to my cousins as well. I stopped in my tracks, not wanting to trip over anything, and waited for my eyes to readjust to the darkness. I pulled my phone out of my pocket to use the flashlight app, and listened intently as my cousins joked with each other, and my uncle cursed under his breath. I think he was about to get out and look under the hood again, but all at once, the four of us heard something that made us all shut up. There was a growling. There was a deep and very loud growling. My uncle shouted, "Mountain lion," but it didn't sound like a cat to me. I shone my light around until two blinding yellow lights were caught in its glare. The animal I was now illuminating took a step back in surprise, then bared its very white teeth, which shone almost as brightly as its eyes did in the limited glare. To say that the beast was large would be an understatement, but it was not a cat. It was some kind of a dog, a very big one too. I thought that its eyes were almost level with my own, and started walking back toward the car, never taking my eyes off the canine. I think my cousins were already back in the car, but I'm not sure because I didn't want to miss a second of what I was seeing. Then, the yellow-eyed, huge, dark dog stood up on its hind legs. It was now far taller than any of us. I don't want to estimate the size because I'm terrible at that, but my uncle insists it was over 7 feet tall when he tells the story. The sickest part about that is, it didn't really stand up tall like a man exactly. It was kind of bent over or hunched over, holding its front paws or claws together, sort of like a kangaroo, or maybe like an Allosaurus dinosaur was supposed to. The thing began running toward us, and was there at the car within maybe 4 steps or 5. I was just slamming the back door shut as it reached the front of the car. I locked the door a second or two before he was around my side, slamming on the car windows with both hands. Or maybe I don't mean hands. I suppose I should say paws or claws, but they were so large, they had to be larger than my own hands. I don't really remember if it had an opposable thumb, but I bet it could pick things up if it wanted to. I was screaming to get us out of there, but my uncle was shouting back that the engine was dead. The dog was racing around the car like it was insane, trying to break in any place that looked vulnerable to it. Trevor was shouting as loud as I was to his father to get him to turn the key in the ignition and try again to start the car. Finally, my uncle got so frustrated, he took the keys out and gave them to his son. Trevor scrambled over his dad to get in the driver's seat, but in the process, he dropped the car keys on the ground. At this point, the Dogman did something even more surprising than anything he had done up till then. He jumped on our roof. Fishing around on the car floor for where the keys had dropped, Nigel found them first and inserted the key. Trevor put his hand over his brother's and they turned the ignition. Together. Nothing. Trevor turned it again, and the car whined and wheezed, nearly starting, but not quite. Then, we all heard a sound to the rear of the car, and to our utter horror, that Dogman's head lowered itself upside down in the back window. All four of us screamed like little kids, and that dog thing just watched us, the way a cat watches a goldfish in a bowl. I saw its breath coming out of its mouth and nose in the form of steam. It fogged up the back window from outside, even as our panic fogged up the windows from the inside. Trevor turned the car key again, and this time, it started. Immediately flooring the gas pedal, we skidded and bumped over the old metallic structure, and we were soon on the other side. Finally, we were free of Crybaby Bridge. The only remaining problem was that we had a feral, angry Dogman on the roof of the car. I don't think Trevor even had a driver's license yet, but instinct kicked in, and he swerved left and right like you see the stunt drivers do in the movies. He came close to sideswiping trees several times, and we all shouted and screamed each time he did. He was trying to get the Dogman to fall off the roof. Apparently the Dogman figured that out too, because he did some kind of backflip and landed just behind us on the road, on his hind legs, and facing us. He began to race after us, and at first it looked like he was going to catch up too. Trevor screamed a high-pitched scream and took us faster. The Dogman dropped to all fours and began closing the gap again. Finally, Trevor just held his foot down on the gas and focused intensely on keeping us, barely, on the road. "We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die. We're all gonna die," I could hear him saying, but after another 30 or 45 seconds of his stunt driving, I could see the Dogman fading into the distance. Trevor said he had to stop the car, but his dad urged him to keep going another minute or two. Somehow he held it together, and then screeched the car to a very long and slow halt. Before the car was even stopped, he was out on the road hurling up all the junk food he'd eaten all night. Nigel got out and dragged him to the back of the car. I opened the door, and Trevor got thrown on top of me. As soon as Nigel was back in the passenger seat, my uncle hit the gas. I was still pulling Trevor into the back seat, but he didn't care. I looked behind for the Dogman, but did not see him, and managed to get my cousin in, closing and locking the door behind him. He smelled really bad, but at least we were all still alive. My uncle drove for another 5 or 10 minutes before remembering that he lived in the other direction. He got off onto another highway heading back south and east, and we took a very different route home, avoiding any haunted bridges that we had heard of. So, that was the first time I ever went legend tripping, and you know what? That was also the last time I ever went legend tripping. In addition, that was the last time I ever will go legend tripping. And you know why? It's all because of the Dogman of Crybaby Bridge. If your day is feeling flat, you can count on our EP Matt, 'cause he can hear you, he ain't deaf. Executive producer, Matthew F. Please join us in thanking today's executive producer, Matthew Frederick, for making this episode possible. In exchange, Matthew gets to see our secret uncensored Sunday stories, as well as our over 21 hours of archived secret uncensored stories as well. Since he's a $7 member, once a week, he gets an advance preview of an episode before the public gets to look at it. And you can get these perks too. Just join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com, or else click that join link under this or any of our videos to become a Scary Stories channel member. And now, here's international spokesmongrel Henry Lee Dogman to fill in any details I may have left out. Hank? Thanks for watching till the end. If you liked what you saw, please consider clicking like on the video or sharing it with your friends and family that you think might also be interested. If you would like to see more of our work, please consider subscribing and hitting that bell icon next to the subscribe button so that YouTube will alert you when we put out a new video. To become a channel member and gain access to our special perks, you can click that join link under each of our videos. Another option is to join our PayPal subscribers club at peterbernard.com. You can join for as little as 99 cents on YouTube or $1.50 at peterbernard.com, and that gains you access to our weekly secret uncensored episodes. If you'd like to see our 21 hours of archives of uncensored Dogman stories, then please join at the $3 level or above. To get to watch our shows in advance of the public, please join at our $10 level. That gets you all the perks. If you join our channel memberships, you need to check our community page here on YouTube in order to get the links to the secret videos and other perks. If you're in the PayPal subscribers club, Peter will email you all the news and links himself. Once joining the PayPal club, which is Peter's homemade club, please give him a chance to see that you've joined and to compose you a personal welcome email, as none of that is automated. But whichever you join, we'll name you an executive producer for the next available episode. Do you have a scary experience that you'd like to share with us? You can email us at scarystoriesnyc@gmail.com or call our Scary Stories voicemail hotline at 804-LA-SCARY. That's 804-537-2279. It's a Google voicemail box, so that means it keeps cutting off after every 3 minutes. If your story is longer than that, please keep calling back and we can piece it together on our end. Good night, and have a scary tomorrow.
Come back for more scary stories.